Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Up only.
Hello and welcome to Up Only TV. I'm Ledger. We've got the founders of Solana. Much anticipated episode. Everybody wants to know what's going on with Solana. Before we let you know about that, let me tell you about our sponsor. You know who it is. Our long-term partner, exclusive partner is Blockfolio. Go to uponly.tv/Blockfolio to check it out today. You can trade directly from one asset to the other. It's a delightful experience. Mobile only. You also can, of course, track your portfolio like you've known and loved since 2014. Thanks to Blockfolio for being our partner. Go to uponly.tv/Blockfolio. Check it out today. Make your first trade. If you hadn't done it, you're missing out. Let's get to the show. Kobe, hello.
Hiya, how you doing, mate?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm alright, but I'm already in the wrong position. You've made my bit on the stream so. Alright. I need to sit here. Okay. And this is going to be so difficult to do for the whole stream. I'm not allowed to move. How am I going to manage this? Alright, I'm in the right place. It seems so strange to see you wearing a hoodie because I'm used to seeing you in your golf/streaming gear, and now you look like a hoodlum.
Yeah, I got my full Solana swag, the whole thing. If everybody wants to see it, even down to. Hold on.
See the socks. Not complete without the socks.
It's not complete without the socks. I got it all on today, just for these guys, just for these guests, special.
I think you are the ideal model for crypto merch. I think you're like that's what peak performance looks like.
All I know is between the lights and the heat emanating from all my equipment, I am so hot right now. I'm gonna be dripping sweat in about 20 minutes.
Ledger, should we clarify that we haven't been paid for this episode? This is a genuine. Yeah. You weren't paid to do this thing with your hoodie on and your socks. That was all free. You can't afford to live in Manhattan.
I already live in Alabama, where the cost of living is significantly lower than Manhattan. Kobe could already afford to live in Manhattan, so this is a non-sponsored episode. We just want to talk to our Solana friends.
Glad we got that out of the way. And Marin, if you're listening, we apologize for joking at your expense, or maybe at Solana's expense. I don't know who's.
It's at our expense. Yeah, all the heat. Just bring it on. Bring it on. We love it.
You gotta embrace the L on that one.
Yeah, we have to, right?
I mean, maybe that's an interesting place to start, because when you're building a blockchain, basically, kind of like a developer platform, kind of like a financial service. I don't know how you would describe it. Things like marketing get kind of interesting and different to a core company where you have a cost of acquisition and a lifetime value of a user, and therefore you can say, well, if over an entire user's lifetime they pay us $100 in revenue per year, then the cost of acquiring that user, we can spend $50 on acquiring that user or something. Like a Binance, they can just say, we make this much revenue per customer, we'll pay this, therefore we go Google ads, Facebook ads, we go all the traditional marketing routes. For something like Solana, it must be very, very different. Can you explain how sorry, I just laughed at the chat. Can you explain how something like that would work for Solana, and then we'll do the niceties and go back to the start of the interview where we'll be how did this thing begin?
Maybe where we say something like, tell us your name, or that kind of stuff. First, answer this question. This is a good question.
This is tough, right? Because part of this is it's not marketing to grow our user base. It's marketing to get to even find the English words that other people can understand about censorship resistance, cryptography, custody. If this is what if this was our marketing material, right? Nobody would understand what the fuck we're talking about, right? It's really tough to concretely and concisely define these things so normal people can understand us when barely my engineer friends barely understand me, right? That are not in crypto. So how do we how do we push through that is something that Raj and I have been like thinking really hard on. And you know, I don't know, that whole thing, it's our fault. That poor woman. Like I feel terrible that like the crypto Twitter community just like went after her instead of us. We should have taken all the heat for that. Like it was cringy because of us, right? Like, so, you know, bring it to us. We could take it.
Yeah, I mean, Kobe, you started by talking about developers, and it's like, I think with the last 6 months, it's we feel there's a pretty strong product market fit with the network and developers wanting to build cool stuff on it. And so the next step is like, how do you drive awareness about all these things that are getting built and how users interact with them? And I think that's like an industry-wide problem. It's like, how do you get people to understand how to custody their own assets and why that's important? I think I tweeted a while back that like at some point it's going to get really cringe. I don't know when, but it's obvious. Like, you know, every time I've ever worked in an industry where there are TV ads, it starts to feel so disconnected from like what's important and why everything got started. And Toli and I, like, we had an explainer video recently that somebody put together, and we watched it and we were like, we can't put this out. It's so cringy. It's so high level and so, you know, basic. But it killed. Like it went out there and on YouTube, you know, everyone loved it. Really good feedback. And on Twitter, it got really great engagement. It just feels like dumbing it down, which is what you have to do, you know?
Yeah.
And being funny is really hard when you're dumbing it down too.
So, Raj, I want to get back to kind of who you're going after in your recruiting to like promote Solana as a layer 1 blockchain solution. Before we do though, can y'all both introduce yourselves and tell us how did you actually get to this point? Like, how did you partner up? How did you decide to launch Solana? All that.
Okay. Yeah. So Anatoly, that's me. Raj is the other guy. I've been an engineer most of my life, like, you know, spent most of my career at Qualcomm. If you remember those like old school flip phones, that's when I started. I started when it was like 2 megabytes of RAM and 16-bit ARM processor. And that's what I was hacking at. And when I left, I was working on optimizing augmented reality through this like massively overpowered GPU and like a phone you hold in your hand. So it's pretty wild. And, you know, like every engineer was aware of crypto. It was just something that was happening in the background, but I always thought, oh, this thing's not going to scale, you know, like who cares? And 2017 came around and I had the side project with Steven, who's one of the co-founders, building GPU racks to use for deep learning, but using mining crypto while we didn't have any like users, right, to like kind of offset the cost of it. And that's when I started really digging into proof of work, why it's necessary, why it's so clever. And I started kind of thinking about like, well, is there like another physical thing that we could measure that isn't thermodynamic energy? Like, is there any other physical constant? Obviously space was something that people were talking about. But I had, you know, 2 coffees and a beer. I was up till 4 a.m. and this like thing hit me. That was, you could measure time. You could measure the passage of time. Not only that, you can record events in this data structure that represents time. And I was manic for like a week. I felt like I was tripping for like a week, literally. Like it was just something that took over me. I don't know why, like, but you know, you spend a long time in like engineering and math, and like time is one of those funky things. There's no mathematical definition of time, right? And Einstein's equations work forwards and backwards in time. It's like one of those unknown problems, right? Like, and really hard to solve one. So when I had that notion that there's some way to trustlessly encode the passage of time, I like couldn't put it down. And like got connected to my buddy Raj through a friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, who's like a CERN physicist, and he was like, "You should go talk to Raj. He knows what he's doing." That was, you know, like one of those how it started.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my end of that is I spent like 7 years pushing in health tech, like trying to I think if you talk to a lot of people who come from a healthcare background in crypto, like I think there's actually a shared story where everyone for like 5 years tried to flip the healthcare system and make it like not completely broken, maybe rebuild it. So I started a company there and was part of some others that grew pretty quickly and were pretty successful. But I had left because I was trying to figure out what to do next and maybe do something in healthcare. And then one of the best guys I ever worked with, Eric Williams, who's a particle physicist, and he led data science when I was leading product management at this company, Omada. He introduced me to Tolly while camping, like, several years ago. And when after I left, he said, Tolly left Dropbox. He's manic. He's got this crazy idea. You have to listen to him. And I had been watching crypto for a while, but only invested, never really jumped all the way in. But when you hear about somebody like Anatoly, like dropping everything to work on something, you just have to like listen. And the more he told me about, his approach to scalability, it sounded like it was the biggest swing I could take maybe in this lifetime. So I was like, okay, 1 year, I'll give him everything I got for 1 year. Help him get money, help him, get the team together and not make those basic like 0 to 1 mistakes. And now it's, 3.5 years in, it's like, I think I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life.
I'm just impressed it only takes 2 coffees and 1 beer to have this inspirational moment. I'm like, I do that every day and I'm still fighting to make it here.
Yeah, but Ledger, you do that before 10 a.m. That's the problem. You're not supposed to do it every morning before you take the kids to school, mate.
Yeah, that must be the issue.
Thank you for telling the story. Yeah, maybe we got the start of this mixed up a bit because I want to jump straight back to what you were talking about like the developer experience and marketing KPIs and stuff. And I think there's 2 questions that come out of it, and one is like I think what Ledger was saying before, like when you do marketing, who is the end user you're marketing to, or like who do you see the end user you're marketing to as? Is it people who are gonna adopt the chain as users, like adopt Sol as a currency? Is it developers who are gonna build things within the Sol ecosystem? Is it retailers to accept Sol like for like goods and services?
I think we don't even know that yet. Just like I think it's like fair to just be open and honest about it. Like the space is so small. Like in my mind, I think like a layer 1's user base is, or like the entire market for a layer 1 in terms of users, I think is the people that self-custody. Like they figured out how to store a seed, right? Like even if it's on Bitcoin or whatever, right? Like that's at least like the people that understand cryptography. How do we get all of them to go try Phantom, right? Go play around with the crypto kickers or whatever. Like that's like one user base, but how do we even increase that user base to begin with? Maybe like the first thing they hear about is like Solana is cheaper than ETH, right? Like that maybe is something that sticks in their head. So when they go try this stuff, they'll maybe try our network first. Or the Solana network. It's just really tough to even know what we should be doing right now. But like at some point, maybe 5 years from now, like there's going to be something like, Intel inside, Solana inside. I don't know. This sounds so ridiculous, right? Maybe that'll stick, right? But it's just so early. I don't know yet.
I hear a lot of narratives about what appeals to people with Solana. The one that seems to have stuck the most so far is like Solana might be the go-to network to bring finance stuff on chain in a way that finance people kind of already get. Like Serum is using order books, not AMMs, and some there's the transactions per second is a thing that y'all talk about a lot. Why have y'all chosen that route, or like how does it blend? How does Solana itself blend with the apps that are being built on the network like Serum, and what's the mix there?
That like the order book finance thing was pretty intentional, and that came from like, okay, so I have this idea to make blockchains fast, but it's not proof of work. What the hell is it for? And the interesting bit of a blockchain from a database, I think, is the censorship resistant piece. That idea that you have this network that guarantees that everyone has fair and open access to it at like the physical implementation level of it. And to me, that's made sense for that to be the building block for like a global open price discovery engine, open marketplace, like go do your trading here. And in theory, it can be as good at it as New York Stock Exchange. Like, if we kick ass at engineering, like all these, like, we just optimize everything down to like its limit. An event propagating through Solana is going to move as fast as news through fiber, right? So something happens in Moscow that travels speed of light through fiber to a terminal. Some guy at Bloomberg is looking at that state transition for that market propagating through Solana, speed of light through fiber. By the time that trader looks at New York Stock Exchange or Solana, that price is already reflected. Like the market running like Serum on Solana is as good at price discovery as New York Stock Exchange. That's cool, right? And the price is, the cost of hardware, which is basically free compared to like the $10 billion that like those monopolies charge people, right? Like that money comes from somewhere, right? Like from humans, right? Like that $10 billion of revenue to run those markets, it comes from people driving to work every day at the end of the day. So if we cut that off to the price of, people that want to go roll up their sleeves, build a computer, stick it in some data center, that's awesome. So that was pretty intentional. And this is kind of like our pitch to Sam. We got connected to him about a year ago. And literally I was like, hey, we can be as good as New York Stock Exchange, but then also it's already live. And here's like this demo break. So you smash your keys, it sends transactions, it comes back, you see the thing light up green. And they were like, okay, this actually works. They showed it to the engineering team, and like 4 weeks later, they built Serum. So they were like, they had a vision for something similar, but like really starting from a finance perspective. Like, what if you could do what we do at FTX, but on a decentralized platform? Like they internally never had like the appetite to go build something like Binance Smart Chain. Like they really wanted something bigger that was like grand, more ambitious in my mind. So that was like, we got connected. It was a good fun time, like those 0 to 1 days, like trying to get this thing up and running on a chain that just launched. If you go back in GitHub history, there was a release every 2 days, basically, for about a month.
Tully, you used to talk about the idea that at some point a central limit order book would happen on chain, and that would solve a lot of DEX problems. And it was kind of like the hardest thing you could imagine. But at the same time, it was like, back when we started, everyone said it was dumb to try and even think about DEXs because DEXs had no traction. Centralized exchanges were on a tear. Even when they got hacked, like it seemed like they were unstoppable. Who needs a DEX, right? And I think like when we zoomed out, we always said something's going to happen. Something's going to work. Blockchain has all these dreams of, what it can disintermediate. And if something works, it's probably going to work a lot, like 10,000 times today's activity, a lot. And so I think, your thought experiment of just like, how do you get the cost of this stuff down to the cost of the bare metal and the network bandwidth required to run the network? And then how do you have it scale over time as you throw more hardware and network bandwidth at the network was like, it was sort of a shot in the dark because we didn't know if it was going to take 5 years or 10 years or 20 years for this kind of adoption to pick up. But you guys were also asking about like, who do we target? I think if you have to isolate it to like one persona that we're targeting, it's like those people that are Tully always says eating glass to acquire users and find that product market fit and find a product that actually needs blockchain. Like I think Sam is definitely one of them. Ranil from Audius is another one. Like we didn't think music was going to be penetrated as deeply as it is with blockchain. I don't think that was even on our radar until we met the Audius team. And it's like, it makes sense. They need censorship resistance. They need performance. It has to feel like Web 2. and it's not just like a theory. They like connected it all. They got, you know, the first 40,000 users, and the users loved it and the artists loved it. It's like, okay, great. That person, more of those, like anybody who can do that, that's like magic. So I think that's how, you know, you get to 1 billion users. People have to build products. Like those are the hardest people to find.
Yeah, that's similar to the way I see it. I think any, you know, not early stage, but like relatively early in life cycle of a blockchain product that's intended to exist for, you know, hundreds of years. So if you're listening, we're still early. No matter, it's been 10 years, but it's still early because Bitcoin's inflation don't run out for 150 years or some shit. But I see a lot of these things as developer platforms, basically. So you should, in my opinion, I'm not a professional marketer or anything, I'm just a fool, but I would treat it as though Solana is a developer platform, and your core KPI is like projects, or like good projects, or projects that like pass some threshold sort of sufficiently, because those are the people that do the marketing that bring the users. And if you have enough of those that like do well enough, then the user sort of like figures itself out. So that's kind of how I think about like smart contract platforms, I guess, or L1 blockchains. How do you think about that developer experience versus building on things like Ethereum or EVM compatible stuff like, you know, Binance Smart Chain is just copy paste from ETH? Like, even though the programming language is Rust, the Solana runtime requires writing code in certain ways, which can be challenging for newcomers. Do you think the tooling is there yet?
So this is kind of like something that I didn't really expect, but kind of seems obvious in retrospect. Because it's a new language, new programming environment, that acts like as a filter for anybody that like really gets their vision. They're willing to, as I often say, eat glass, right? Eat some glass to get something done. And the people that end up sticking with this are like people that are awesome, like Norbert that's building Synthetify, built it during his finals. It's just really cool to find those folks that are like, that kind of like, their brain starts exploding with ideas, and then they just like can't put it down and work through the problems. And that, having that as our initial set of builders in the community is like, I couldn't have planned for that. That was, you know, like that was accidental. Like I was freaking out, like we don't have EVM support, no one's going to build on this, like we need to like you know, change gears in the runtime or something like that, like. And luckily, like just things worked out, you know, in some ways that we had this stuff up and running first, and Serum was launched right after that, and that kick-started like the DeFi builders. And we realized that a lot of the folks coming into the space that choose Solana are coming in from like traditional finance, like C++ devs out of like Chicago. The stuff that they're familiar with very much applies here. C++, same thing, complexity level as Rust. The handling order books, same thing that they do every day. So like they're able to jump in and kind of start innovating really quickly. And software scales pretty well. Like, you know, we built the initial implementations for a bunch of reference stuff, but people are able to kind of start doing their own thing. And like Cope, that was like a cool project that they didn't write. He didn't write any smart contract code. He took our like token implementation that already worked and like wrote some JavaScript to do the airdrop and like built this like Discord community. And like those folks are really like when I think the ecosystem starts taking off, when you've done so much of the base layer and the base layer is good enough for people to like, I have an idea of like how to connect this stuff to humans. Like I'm not even thinking about protocols anymore. It's literally like I'm going to have fun with people and I'm just going to get it done in a weekend. That's awesome, right? That's when stuff I think can really take off. We see some of that, like we see some of it, but Not as much, I think, as I'd like. Like Metaplex, I think, is a good example of this kind of moving forward a bit.
I want to stick on this conversation around the developer stack and who it caters to, because I think this is one of the big things where a lot of crypto projects can fail. Like the stuff that was built on OCaml, I feel like really didn't attract a big developer ecosystem. But y'all are talking about how built on Rust, it is attractive to people who do C++. C++ people tend to work in finance. So you felt like there was a more natural bridge there. But it's not immediate. Like you're doing this gigantic hackathon right now, I imagine, to try to recruit these people that you think are talented to build on Solana. Whereas in the ETH ecosystem, there's this massive demand for Solidity developers, but Solidity developers are needed because there aren't enough to cover all the demand for the projects. So they have their own kind of moat, I guess, with, Solidity. So many of the blockchain developers today are familiar with Solidity, but they're still not near enough. So you're kind of going after a different talent pool, I guess. And what are the risks that you think you face there, and what are the advantages?
The risks.
Well,
are
totally. Backing up real quick, like, I mean, the decision, and again, I wasn't part of the engineering team. I just was there to see this, but like the decision to go Rust first wasn't about like attracting a certain type of developer who just happens to know similar languages. It was more, I think, you and Greg talked about it, and it was a discussion about what's the right language for the long term, and that was Rust. And then once you have that in place, there's a certain kind of engineer that's not like, they don't see themselves as a C++ engineer. They see themselves as a get shit done engineer that thinks things through, on a 5-10 year time horizon, and is making decisions as if they're going to acquire 1 billion users in the next like 3 years. And they start making decisions accordingly, and they can learn a new language in like 2 weeks and get off the ground. And I think that's more the order of operations. It's like at the time, I don't think Rust was adopted in blockchain. I think, we were one of the first projects to do it. It was just the right decision. And I think Anatoly, every time we asked, should we support Solidity? Should we support EVM? The question was just, all right, show me, 3 like absolute killer developers that are incredible, product focused entrepreneurs that are blocked completely by Solidity. Like, if you show me them, I'll convince them that it's probably the right thing to just learn Rust. And that's what kept happening. Everybody who was really, really good and really hungry was willing to do the work to learn it. And then, it just got put off kind of indefinitely.
But the other side, so that's the advantage, right? Like engineers that are like, you're doing something so cool. It's, Rust is like voted #1 language by GitHub folks anyways every year. So it's not like we picked Haskell or something, which I spent, which I know, like, which I've spent 10 years coding in Haskell too. So there's like, everyone loves Rust. So that was kind of easy, right? We didn't pick an environment that we thought would be difficult for us to convince people to use. The hard part with EVM is like, it's possible to run EVM as a smart contract on Solana. There's like a team working on this, doing their own kind of thing. But are you going to get like really smart people full-time thinking about like, how do I build and scale, like, borrow lending to 1 billion users on top of an order book? Or are you just going to get like somebody that copies something from Solidity and then slaps their token on it? Like that's the really hard part about like building this, because it's kind of like, we're building a social network, right? Like, and an operating system. I'm sure when you guys started out with this, with Up Only, like the initial people that joined that community, like set a lot of the tone and like kind of built it with you. You kind of want to be really, you want those to be as high quality, as awesome, as kind of true believers in your vision as possible.
Maybe we have to start again then, Ledger. It is interesting that the lack of EVM copy pasta, means that people don't clone over code that they don't really understand, like complex systems where they saw the price go up on Ethereum, so they copied it onto Binance and hoped the price would go up similarly, and it did, but not as far. And then people have seen now both of those things happen. It's like, great, we can now copy it onto whatever platform is like available. So it is interesting that you don't get those, and you have to put a little bit more effort in to build something, and therefore it's more likely that the things that are being built have some kind of legitimacy. But what about the scenarios where that like doesn't end up true? Like maybe there's tons of dev activity and they're a bunch of noobs, and they're like, look, Solana is the new, like, it's going to be Sol Summer. Like, Solana Summer is real. I've seen that weird video of Matty in a bikini, and I'm like, I believe in it now. And they start writing some Rust for the first time in their life. They write some, like, terrible, like, shit code, and a bunch of money gets lost. How do you think about these things happening? Do you just think it's, like, inevitable? It's part of the... like being a blockchain founder, we can't do anything about it? Or do you have like an approach to it that's like maybe novel?
I don't know if it's novel. It's just, it seemed like common sense stuff. We have like a lot of community review. Like we have these guys that came out of like Capture the Flag, DEF CON winners, that are like we use as the community review team, and they just destroy people's code. Like just go through it and like identify every bug that they can find. So that's part of it. And that was homegrown. And again, that came out like with us telling them, we're going to try to build this super censorship resistant thing using hardware. And they're like, cool. And then they destroyed us. but then they but they had fun, right? Like they were like, they spent the time, invested the time to like learn the system and got what we're doing, and are now doing that for like everyone else involved. And that's just kind of, like part of growing like that initial user base, those initial folks.
There you go. If you're listening, you get free audits on Solana. You don't need to pay Quant Stamp anymore because it don't matter. They do it for free. So they're the kind of lifeguards of the Solana summer. They're the like lifeguards on the side.
But like all the devs in our ecosystem are like, people that have done a bunch of development, 5+ years. There's enough of those that are like, you got to unit test your code, like check all errors, use checked math. Like the tools in Rust are there, right? It's a language that like, Google uses for development. Like, so that it's, when people talk about DevX and they think that Solidity or EVM has good DevX, me as an engineer that's been like a decade working outside of Solidity, I find it to be extremely underdeveloped and rudimentary and kind of broken in every way, from the language design at the high level to the virtual machine. So, but I say that with love because of what they've accomplished, right? They've accomplished massive amounts of like innovation. Like DeFi wouldn't exist without Ethereum and EVM. But as just a hardcore operating systems engineer, Rust is, 1,000 years ahead of like just development. So I think a lot of the problems that you see in EVM and Ethereum, especially those early hacks, those reentrancy hacks, all those like weird, parity multi-sig wallets, that came from just bad language design. Like, so, there's literally type systems that prevent that from happening in like modern day languages. So it's fine, right? Those are early days, but
Kobe, I think you're onto something there, talking about like that longer tail with the barrier to entry being a little higher. You can't clone Uniswap v2 and like say, look, I got chicken swap on Solana and off at Moons, It makes people think harder, work a little harder to build these apps and maybe have a longer term focus. However, the market doesn't always reward like that longer term focus, So like, I guess one of my questions is, you have a war chest. So you have investors, like I think of Multicoin Capital that was like Solana's going to overtake ETH in 2 years type of like shilling their bags, but also promoting Solana. You've got, a bunch of people that are behind you as the broad network. So now I guess the next layer of that is you kind of using all of this credibility that you've built up to now support kind of this next layer of dApps. How do you put like a timeline and roadmap and strategy towards helping get that stuff out there and built where you balance timeliness with quality?
Shit. These are hard questions. So we don't.
Like, we came on Up Only TV. We thought you just like did jokes and got drunk. What's going on?
So it's just we're trying to help like unblock people. Like when I think of like how to get this thing off the ground and how to build this ecosystem. The ecosystem I'm familiar with is like Android. That's 5,000 engineers at Google. That's $1 billion a year in spend and engineering spend. We can't raise that much. There's no way we can like raise $5 billion. Like it's just impossible. And we have
Just
no
hire EOS. Hire EOS's
exactly.
fundraising team. They can do it for you. They'll do it in a day.
Well, that's only $4 billion though. It's pretty weak.
Yeah.
Shit.
So like it's really tough to like get to that level without actually like getting product market fit and innovating, and we can't even do all of that. So our goal here is to really like through these hackathons find those founders like the Renils, like the Norberts that are like will code, not sleep and ship product, iterate, get to product market fit, and like start those loops with their own vision. And we just try to unblock them. Like Raj and I just spend all day like figuring out are they blocked on marketing? Do they need people in their Telegram channel just talking to people? Like, do they need translations? Like whatever it is, like we'll move mountains, small and big. And the funding is helping us like scale that up right when we need to hire people to do that full time and like generate those cringy marketing materials.
Yeah, y'all did raise, you don't have $5 billion, but you did raise, I think this has got to be one of the largest raises in crypto, like off of VC. Y'all raised $314 million, led by A16Z and Polychain. I guess that's where some of this goes to.
Yeah, and like we don't know what's going to happen, right? Like it's really hard to predict. And when you get to a certain, you need like a certain amount of runway and a certain amount of like moves that you can make to try to make a go of it. But it is really like a challenge that I don't see us as the real solution. It's like, how do we like find all those founders that are willing to go like build awesome products? And that's really tough. Like we just need to like find them, unblock them, get them going, get them funding, like right, whatever they need.
The chat would love to know like how is a raise like that structured? Like, are you selling tokens at a discount or something like that to these people in order to get a little bit of liquidity? I'd
love to like answer those questions, but I need our lawyer here to like tell me like what can or can't I say.
Yeah. I didn't participate in the round and I don't know the actual specifics, but I can talk generally about how these things seem to be structured for larger raises based on my experience talking to other founders. Yeah. It seems to generally be like per year of lockup there is some percentage discount from the market, e.g. Let's say you locked up your tokens for 4 years, you get a 20% discount on market or something. Adjust like year to percentage based on like whatever, depending on like the bull state of the market, the founders, how desperate the founders are for cash, and how like bullish the investors are on the project. Typically, A16Z tend to bid things up to insane amounts, especially when they're on the sidelines. So if they didn't have a position already, they normally like pay dumb amounts. I
love you, Kobe.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to put you like on the spot or anything, but I had.
Please do.
There were probably 5 people that asked about it, so there's probably 5,000 that want to know.
You guys need to test us. This is how we get better, is like from these friendly matches, right?
Yeah. And part of that too is you have a lot to balance. Like there's stuff that you want to be able to fund. You don't want to just like dump tokens all over your community or whatever, like Link does, or to fund the things that you want to do. But it's a balance, like even for those teams. And I don't mean that in a bad way about Link, but like.
Don't diss the Marines, mate.
Yeah,
you've had too many fights online. You were bearish on Solana and they sent you merch to win you over. You were bearish on Rune and you started a war. Don't start with the Marines. The Marines are too powerful.
Yeah, no, I don't mean it in a bad way. But like it is a weird balance. Like your tokens are the main thing you have in your war chest. And you want to put them in good, strong, long-term hands if you believe you're going to bring 1 billion users on, like you've talked about a couple times, Raj. So like, I guess let's put it this way. How do you make sure that you're bringing on the right partners, that you don't think they'll just come on and the minute they get liquidity, they dump it all over people for whatever they can get, but instead they see like this long-term future?
Raj, I mean, like had the right instincts in those early days to like actually.
I mean,
filter.
it's I don't know. You kind of smell it on people at a certain point, right? Like, I mean, there's obviously a lot of short-term, money to be made if that's your goal. But I think like what drew me and Anatoly together and a lot of the team, and I think most of the folks that we work with see a potential that's way, way bigger than, anything we're even talking about today, or the number of people that are interacting, the dollar values. Like it's just so early. So, and then, I think one of the good things about having everything be liquid in crypto is that every day is a new decision to, either hold or double down, or, just keep the same level of conviction and balance of your portfolio that you had before. And I think the only way to outflank that truly is to just ship so incredibly quickly and so much and always focus on the hardest problems. And I mean, we feel like we're in a good rhythm of doing that. I think most folks that found their way to building on Solana have that kind of rhythm and that kind of like urgency. So as long as the space keeps growing, and obviously you pick people that aren't just like, really, really short-term thinkers and that don't, get really kind of predatory about the way they make these investments. Then I think the rest works out. But honestly, like I think in crypto in general, it's just, you can almost just tell by the way people carry themselves, what their goal is. And I think that's a lot of how we've, filtered for who we spend time with. Do they tend to talk about, computers or do they tend to talk about, kind of what the other guy got and whether their deal is better, and do they try to bully their way into things?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
I mean,
that's classic Ledger bullying his way in.
In like 20 minutes. In like 20 minutes, they will tell you that they want a special deal, and that's like a flag, right? Like, okay, you're like, you're like, why? Like, yeah. So
I'll do it in the opening message. I'll just say, "Hello, I'm internet celebrity Crypto Cobain, and I would like a special deal." Back to computers though. One of the things you often see when people are anti-Sol or want to FUD Sol a little bit is they talk a bunch about the specifications required for running a validator. I think the decentralization argument is relatively weak because I think it's relatively clear that you're sufficiently decentralized for the level of to the industry standard, basically. But it is spoken about a lot, and the hardware requirements are relatively high and costly. And I saw in the Hasu Uncommon Core Kyle episode that there was an assumption that over time there will be decentralization of validator set and stuff. How do you see that playing out? Because I don't think that assumption is I'd love to know what that assumption is based on, basically.
Yeah, this is like, so the goal is like I guess like think of this like kind of morbid example. Like I am United States. I want to defend against Soviet Union first strikes, and I have this really massive sensor array to detect when they launch. That's BFT, right? You got to solve BFT to build this. And the way I defend it is that I maximize how hard it is for the attacker to break into this and disrupt my sensors. So I need to increase the number of these sensors, but also have them independent command and control, right? So you can't bribe. They have to truly be like separate and smart and do a good job of running these things, but also as large as possible, because that takes the attacker the most amount of time. So that like censorship resistant piece that like maximize the minimum set of nodes that are up to 33%. That's really like what we think is the coolest part about blockchain. It's like building that nuclear first strike defense system, right? And the only way to do that is that these things have to process more messages. They have to sign more stuff. They have to receive more information. They have to, because that minimum set has to be fully synchronized. So you just have to use more hardware. You have to use more bandwidth. Like you just kind of have to bite that bullet. That's a different vision than ETH2, right? Like that's a different vision than a lot of protocols that kind of think about it more like, well, if we get nuked, let's hope there's at least like one survivor that tells us that something went wrong, right? That's which is fine. Like I think that's an interesting thing to explore, but I think for like running a central limit order book market for the entire world, you kind of need this like nuclear first strike defense thing. So that's something that we focused on from day one. And the hardest part here is like, how do we spread the stake? How do we convince SOL holders and all these other people that you shouldn't just put your tokens on like the Bison Trails nodes, as much as I love those guys. Like when you look at the list, go actually spread this out. A lot of it is education. So we've done a pretty decent job there. And just from us telling people like, it's important that you spread your stake. I think we have the highest number. It's like 16 or 17 right now to get to 33%, which is twice as much as EOS. It's 8 on EOS, but 4 times as much as ETH2. Right? Like when people think about this, they should realize that EOS is actually more censorship resistant from that perspective than ETH2. Doesn't mean that it's more decentralized. This is just one facet of how you can look at this. Our goal is to make...
Sorry, go on, after you.
Yeah. So our goal is to get that to thousands, because when like the chief security officer at like NASDAQ or Fidelity or whatever, when they look at this network and they're like, okay, it takes 1,000 independent parties, which I can kind of verify, to collude, to disrupt the flow of information, I can trust this network, to do my finance stuff. Like at a gut level, it becomes so big that they just stop giving a shit and just go for it. That's how large it needs to be. But the way I think that this might happen is with staking derivatives kind of becoming the like stake pool staking derivatives, like liquid staking, becoming the default DeFi collateral in a lot of these marketplaces. And because these marketplaces themselves depend on censorship resistance to function, that those folks, those communities will promote the ones that maximize censorship resistance. So you guys are nodding because I assume you get it, but try to like compress that to like a marketing materials to grow awareness of why censorship resistance is important, why fair markets are important. Like it's just like it sucks, right? Like how do we?
That's not our job, but even within the
technically it was mine for a little bit, because it is something I wanted to talk about a little bit, because ETH2 staking was designed so poorly, in my opinion, that it gave rise to liquid staking products, and it allowed them to grow relatively quickly. We were reaching the point in the Up Only TV episode where I must add that I was a co-founder of the Lido DAO and hold a significant position in Lido, and now I'm going to talk about Lido, which is in my financial interests, and et cetera. But it gave rise to products like Lido to do quite well. And one of the benefits of Lido was that it actually decentralizes ETH2 staking a little bit because it has like what 8% market share of ETH2 staking at the moment, but the validator set is like 10 validators large, so each of that 8% stake is shared out between 10 validators underneath it. And before that, the way ETH staking was set up was just like favorable to centralized exchanges, like exchanges and big centralized parties. Chorus one of the teams working on Lido, is building staked Solana, so like Solana for Lido within the Lido DAO, and trying to do a similar thing, right? And you can see a future where you maintain decentralization by having a validator set that is sufficiently large and well maintained that the core collateral used in DeFi, or used as the base layer currency for these blockchains, is managed through a governance subcommittee of a DAO that makes sure the validator set remains up to some level of decentralization. But when you start talking about a lot of this stuff, people go, what are you talking about? And like, why don't you build, if you're building like a staking derivative and you're doing liquid staking, why don't you build that into the core blockchain as like a native instrument within the blockchain? And is having a central planner, even if it's a DAO or a DAO governance committee, like governing decentralization of validators, isn't that in some way counterintuitive? How do you think about like these topics?
Yeah, this was so in Solana, when you delegate your stake to the node, you don't change custody, but that validator has full control over it up until the epoch ends after you've done delegating. So they're weighted by it, and that's different than an ETH, where you create your validator, you have your 32 ETH, and you can't really move that stake over. And Lido kind of exists as a way to like, send my ETH to Lido, then they do this for me. So Lido in a way has custody of those assets. In Solana, you can do this without relinquishing custody, and the command control, if you want to think of it that way, is actually totally passed to the underlying validator that this DAO delegates to. So it's a bit different, and this stuff is hard. I don't know how it's going to play out in the future, but the one thing that I can tell you that we're optimizing for is that like censorship resistant within that short epoch. At least that works, right? Like at least within those 2 days, if we fully decentralize the network, then we can at least look at it and know 33% is 1,000 independent parties. And if the DAO goes rogue and starts moving stuff around, that investors can move those tokens during those 2 days, right? We at least have that window to go like, do stuff, take action as humans, and that's maybe the best we can do. I don't know, right? But like I think that's something for now. And these are hard problems, right? Like I don't,
It seems like a lot of these proof of stake networks that have put some thought into it, whether it's Lido with ETH or what you're talking about with Solana. Tezos was actually pretty early to this. Seems like they've kind of taken on this model of like a republic, right? So you're kind of voting on who you want to govern the network on your behalf. And it seems like that's a pretty reasonable way to do things, because those validators are the people who you're giving your tokens to govern the network. Like they're pretty incentivized to do so well, because they want to be reelected or they want to keep their bond or whatever they're incentivized with in that particular network. Whereas if it's purely democratic, like a lot of people just don't know to participate, or they don't know how to participate, or they just ignore it. So Bitcoin's probably the most democratic if you just assume like all miners are democratic, because they have to signal things, right? Or like a node has to signal all this stuff, and keeping up with it and getting consensus for everyone to actually participate in governance can be quite a challenge. What are some of the things that y'all have actually learned so far in governance? Like, what does governance look like today on Solana? Are people taking part? Is there like a forum where these proposals exist today? What's it look like?
Yeah, there's a forum in Discord, and our governance is pretty healthy. Like, because we started with this kind of hardcore validator set that could go deploy machines in data centers. Like a lot of the folks that came out of Cosmos were the initial people that seeded Solana. And that community grew with this like kind of builder mentality that when we had the proposal for inflation, there were 15 proposals, like 15 pull requests that ended up on chain as votable proposals, and one of them won. So that was, I think, a really healthy showing of like, let's open the forum to anybody. Anybody can propose. That stuff ends up being as a something that cryptographically can be activated in the software on the network, and everybody has the option to activate whatever they want. So that system works pretty well, and I think it works until you start getting trolls. I don't know how popular we need to get for that to happen, but so far, like it's a pretty healthy community with not that many trolls, and I think that's kind of true of all of crypto. I don't know how much way you guys put into like the Curve proposal to go after IP for other open source projects. Like that seemed kind of a troll thing, but
Curve's throwing out
it's
all
pretty
kinds
rare
of stuff right now. I feel like there was the vote about like shutting off rewards for the pool that Alchemix was using, and yeah, I don't know the details.
That was reasonable though, wasn't it? Because it was like double rewarding.
Yeah,
I thought that one was reasonable.
I guess,
but the IP one was weird.
Yeah, the IP
one was weird. It was like the Uniswap proposal to list on Arbitrum, and if they didn't do it, I was going to be like, holy shit, this is going to be weird. But then I realized they just did it straight away anyway.
Yeah.
Curve's the only project where I don't know what their Twitter account is, and there's all these other Twitter accounts where I'm like, is that the official one? Because like that's offensive. That's not a good tweet. They shouldn't be tweeting that. But like, I'm never sure. I think maybe I just follow the wrong one. I'm like, I just follow some dude pretending to be Curve on the internet. That seems like a good use of time.
Yeah.
How important do you think the community that you've built has been? Like obviously you have hugely influential community members like SBF must have added a ton of value by himself, and the true way to satisfy the Bahamas test is to reach like a level of contributors within your community that add so much value that if you both went to the Bahamas, or it's better than the bus test in it, because like getting hit by buses, that's not good.
Bahamas sounds way better.
Yeah, the Bahamas test is better. But how valuable have you found it, and do you think that you put the right amount of effort in? And two, what have you learned and what have you taken away? So if someone else is building the Solana killer, what can they learn from you to kill you quicker?
I think, dang, okay. What have we learned? Have we learned anything? We operate on instinct a lot. Like it's basically like what is the current fire? There's a lot of like essays on like how to start a startup that when I read before didn't make any sense. Like what does it mean to like what does it really mean to like build an MVP or to get users or like to not scale? Like how do you avoid not scaling, right? Like these are all like kind of bullshit terms, but what I learned is that because we were like in those early days, we never raised like a massive amount of money. We were always like hungry, and there was always like 18 months of runway left. We better ship this thing. You start kind of prioritizing things at a like kind of a almost like fire driven development. Like, is this a fire right now? Then we'll work on it. If it's not, then like don't even think about it. Don't bring it up. So this is what I would like recommend to anyone that's building things, is to like really kind of optimize for shipping, but it's not as easy as just like one variable. You got to have like that core vision that you can't corrupt, like that sacred flame that is like, this is the most important thing about this product. I won't compromise anything on that. And then like, fire driven development, get that thing out as fast as you can.
What is Solana's sacred flame?
It was
Can you say that again, but in a sexier voice?
Yeah.
Sacred flame.
Dude, I said sexier. What was that?
I don't know, I've never talked sexy in my life. Sorry.
I feel for your wife, mate. You do it.
Hi,
honey. Like talking like Batman.
it was really important to me that that the way that the chain worked was that our TPS, like that votes were transactions, and this is like we argue about this shit on Twitter, but this was critical to how we design everything, that consensus votes were transactions, and that when we were optimizing the shit out of the runtime, that we were doubling something meaningful to censorship resistance. That all the work we're putting in like had this feedback loop. Okay, we make this thing faster, means more nodes can participate in consensus, which means more censorship resistance, but also means central limit order books can run, et cetera, et cetera. But this was like the thing that was really tough to build, because if like there's a lot of like, it's a lot of code, like a lot of shit can go wrong. We didn't isolate consensus from anything else. Like when the thing booted up the first time, it crashed in 20 minutes. The Chorus and like the Chorus One folks came back the next week and did it again with us, right? And like then it ran for like an hour, and then like 2 hours, and then a week. And we're like, holy shit, it works. And then it crashed. So those lessons and like that bring up was something that we didn't compromise on, and like I think gave us just kind of really strong base to where like now like we're adding validators, adding more use cases. We don't have to redesign anything. It's just all kind of downhill. It feels like downhill, at least.
What would you say now that you're, I don't know how long into the Solana network being live, like what do you just wake up and wish wasn't so broken? You know, like this was better, had more app support, like had more people working on it.
Oh man, our I don't know if you're an engineer, but like we just didn't put any work into this like serialize, deserialize, like how to make it easy for programs to share their data structures between them. We just literally like internally we just casted things like C, like here's a struct, this is its layout, it's just whatever it will be, kind of like by hand. And it just sucks. Like Anchor was something that Armani built from like Serum, like 6 months into building on Solana, and that he was eating glass trying to get shit out. Just like finally like came up with like a good way to do this. So that was something that like we just ignored. In terms of like what's busted right now, what's really busted right now? I feel like what I'm coding on right now is trying to get this like accounts index out of RAM into SSDs. It's like optimizations, right? Like it's not anything critical, but a bunch of like work that's just going to be, you know, blood, sweat, and tears.
That makes a lot of sense. So are you gonna embrace the cringe with the plan to marking? Because I feel like you've got a fork in the road ahead of you with cringe marketing now. Like you can either just say, look, actually we're gonna go full meta and embrace the cringe. Like we had this weird thing where people were wearing like swim like a dinghy on a catwalk. Like you released it and the price just immediately fucking collapsed in a single candle. And then you did this weird video with Myron that was like, you know, the fees are so low I can afford to live in Manhattan for the last 5 years before.
Who are the people that didn't get the humor in that? That's like, there's, like, come on.
If it's not funny, it has to be, yeah, it has to be funny. I think some of those things were just not funny. We're going to keep trying to have fun. Otherwise, this is not worth it at all.
Yeah.
But it's like
it's way too stressful.
It's like second order humor. It's like maybe it's not funny at first. But
Yeah,
like, it's funny now.
Now it's like a crypto Twitter meme, right? Like we want this was the, you know, we couldn't have expected an outcome where like people would be talking about this for, you know, weeks later.
So
Yeah,
here's
so like
something I
maybe you
wanna
just
know.
embrace it now.
Of all
Maybe
the
you embrace
swag,
it and
like of all the swag y'all sent me, I want to know, why did you send me a body bag? Like this is
That's
this
a
human being
that's a
can go in
beanbag
this.
cover.
This is a body bag.
There
was no fluff.
That's a beanbag cover.
There's no fluff. It's just
You gotta-
like, for human beings.
Or you
to go
can
in.
afford your own fluff because Solana fees are so low.
Yeah, you gotta get your own fluff, man.
There you go, Solana, no fluff. That's a great tagline. That's
I think
We
we're
didn't
gonna,
know. We didn't know it was gonna come empty. Like we were like, why is this beanbag so cheap? It's like $4. They didn't tell us they were gonna send it empty.
Yeah, but maybe you should embrace the cringe now. You should run another hackathon, which is actually a cringe-a-thon, where people submit the cringiest possible Solana advertisement, and you pay
dude,
the
I
winners.
love it.
That's just cringe only. Cringe only.
Cringe only.
That's good.
I think we're down to embrace it. I think what else are we gonna like? How else do you do it, right? Like I think you can go full Definity, and then like
The internet computer.
yeah.
That was a different type of cringe.
That's
That was
so
like
cringe.
a weird cringe.
Yeah.
That was like a weird, like not funny, like I feel a bit uncomfortable, like a bit Black Mirror almost, like unintentional Black Mirror cringe.
Yeah, like, you know, Marin is like a cool person, right? Like if you, she's like doing her thing. It seemed like a something that people would just mostly find funny. But really,
I think we're
really,
realizing how different it is when like 100 people see something and don't respond well, and then you don't really promote it, you don't put it out there much more. Now it's everything, 40,000 people like have to comment. So it's hard to not be cringy to some people.
Yeah.
But like, so the Marin thing, there was going to be a follow-up. So like the thing she wanted to do was educate her users on how to actually use something that's like interesting. So there's supposed to be like a series of, this is what Solana is. Here's how you get, a wallet. Here's the wallet options. Here's a few products. Here's what they do. Here's why it's possible with Solana, right? Thing is, if you lose sight of the fact that, the first video has to like stand alone and not be, a totally cringe explainer of what Solana is.
I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like this is one of those things where I think people could look back on this interview in a year and be like, oh, I learned all this stuff about Solana. What are they talking about with this video? Like,
No, look, you've got the greatest. This is the greatest opportunity, that marketing opportunity that's ever been in front of a blockchain project. So hear me out. Listen. Here's some free alpha for you or any other blockchain project that's listening that wants to steal this idea first. But you have this video format, right? Marin did the first one, and it was like she got bullied off Twitter for it, and I think she'll come back because she's addicted to Twitter, as we all are. But she'll come back, and like it wasn't that bad. It was just a bit cringy. But she did this format of like, here's how I afforded this ridiculous thing because Solana fees are so low. Video 2, size Chad on a boat in Miami. Here's how I avoided this boat because Solana fees are so low. Video 3, Leonardo DiCaprio with a mansion. I afforded this mansion because the fees are so low. You've got the greatest opportunity in the world in front of you.
Dude,
I will watch every single one of those videos even if it says the exact same fucking shit.
I think I'm down.
I think you're the new marketing director.
This is my calling.
You gotta have somebody
I
who's
want
willing to
half
lean
of
in.
A16Z's money, please.
You're gonna get
Deal.
bullied off Twitter for this, man. You're down for this?
They can try if they want. They can try. They've been trying to bully me off for ages.
So we got an important question in the chat from, I think their name was 5 a.m., which was, Raj, did you take your dad to Miami? And if so, how did it go?
I did not. He wanted to. I as I got closer to the event and I realized how ridiculous everyone was about to be, I decided that was not a good environment for my father.
You made a quality decision. That was a quality decision.
Yeah, and you
Yeah, maybe
avoided the
next time.
super spreader event.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's 72. I don't think he should be out there.
So go ahead.
I got rapid tested. It was fine. The vaccine works. This was my test for the vaccine. I was like, okay, let's just go really test this mRNA thing.
Let's just go breathe on everyone. Excuse me, mate, can you just breathe in my mouth?
I'm pretty sure Eric Wall gave me a kiss maybe on the mouth, like on the forehead. And then like more than 24 hours later, he's like, I got COVID. I hope he's okay.
So why don't we talk about the hackathon a little bit? So Kobe and I are apparently judges on this. I don't really know what that means other than I got a big list of projects that were submitted to it. So apparently now I have homework to like look at these.
If you're listening and you want a vote, votes are $1,000 each, and I'll vote on your project for $1,000.
I also will, but it's going to be $10,000 each. So what's going on here? You've got $1 million of prizes and seed funding. There were a lot of submissions. I imagine this, part of this is what we're talking about, like recruiting people to build on your network. This is incentivizing them to do so. Oh, look at that, Kobe! You jumped right all the way to the top of the judges page.
I'm in front of that guy. Who's that? President of Solana Foundation.
You look
never heard of it. Down here.
You look great next to Jeremy Allaire, like internet pioneer over here in a suit, and then the Kobe picture.
Me and Kobe definitely have the most serious profile pictures of anyone on here, between me and my short Solana outfit and Kobe's glasses. But anyway, tell us about the hackathon.
I think so. You mentioned a couple of times like the idea of attracting developers. It's I've been thinking about the hackathons more as like a forcing function. It's like focusing. I mean, the developers are coming. They're just they're banging down the doors. Like the Discord is growing incredibly quickly. A lot of people that are building in this hackathon already were committed to trying out something on Solana, and it's like a giant party. It's like Miami was. It just forces everyone to come together at the same time and like listen to the same things and be on the same timeline and be like looking out for opportunities at the same time and form teams. I think the most important thing that comes out of the hackathon is team formation. Because especially like during COVID, there was just a lot of free agents, like loan folks. I think 40% of people that came into the hackathons have never written a smart contract before. You see a lot of people that are just like, I'm good at marketing, I'm good at design, but I can't code. Who do I pair up with? And we'd never really run hackathons before these ones, but it became pretty clear in the first one in December that the most important thing was just getting everyone together and giving them like a timeline. The money, so I mean, $1 million is like it's like a joke at this point, because I think in the last one there were 11 teams got funded with over $1 million each within 2 weeks. That was out of 100 submissions from 3,000 registrations. This one, there's been almost 13,000 registrations. There were 350 submissions. Like I think investors were banging down the door trying to say, can we put in more into the prize pool? And they wanted to get their logo up and everything. The money is not, like, we're not attracting these developers. It's just sort of giving everyone a date. And also there's pride in it, right? Like if you win, you had to go through the gauntlet with everyone else trying to win at the same time. The competition is a very focusing factor in these things. And the submissions from the last hackathon are thriving. They're all building teams. They have users. They're like trolling each other through their company Twitter accounts. They have that like shared experience of all having built and launched at the same time. So I don't know what's going to happen with this one. It's unbelievable how many quality applications came through. Some of them are like full-fledged games. I think the most successful ones already started acquiring users and building a community before the thing was even over, which is awesome to see.
What are some of the things we talked about finance earlier, but what do you anticipate could come up on Solana that is not like that's different than what you see on ETH Layer 1, like classic examples of apps?
Good question, Ledger. You're quite good at this.
Thank you, sir. Put that on my resume.
I think like a lot of the stuff is like what I remember, like 2017, everybody was publishing a white paper. We're going to do this crazy thing on blockchain. None of it worked. People are like actually able to ship some of those things, like, and like have them work on chain. And that's pretty cool. Like some like a random thing I saw, Wumbo, is like creator coins that plug into Twitter that you can just like publish and mint right through the Twitter, like right on Twitter, right? Or right on whatever social media thing you're at. And like, is that going to disrupt the advertisement, business model? Maybe like some version of that, right? Like in 5 years, maybe there'll be fully content creator token networks that don't use ads, right? That don't steal your data. But like, this stuff is like, it's cool to see people try it, like and like get to market and like go do their thing, like get users. So that to me is like a sign that we got most things right.
Raj, you got any ideas?
Sorry, what was the question? Like, what's the cool stuff that, that gets
Maybe you're not so good at this, Ledger. I take it back. Your question was not engaging enough for them to listen to.
I take
just like DApp categories, I guess, that you think that could pop up that are different or enabled on Solana that are not on ETH Layer 1.
Yeah, I think, it seems like the play to earn movement on Ethereum is finding some new life on Solana. Like, it happened faster than I expected, but there's a lot of like just fully on chain games, and obviously the fees are basically nothing. And it's a more fun way to to get an airdrop out and get users holding tokens. I think anything that's like an experiment that really unlocks once you get like 50,000 people using it concurrently is really interesting. The music and video streaming stuff, anything chat based like satellite is pretty awesome. Like the actual idea of a fully decentralized Discord, like things that feel like Web 2, is where a lot of the best devs seem to be gravitating toward. And there's a lot of experimentation, I think, before that stuff gets dialed in. But there's just dozens of teams, building toward it.
Cool.
What do you guys like so far?
What do we like?
Yeah, you guys have been looking at the hackathon submissions. What are you into?
You've been doing due diligence 24/7 for the last 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, I did find one that I liked, but I don't know if I should like leak my stuff on here. I don't know what the etiquette is. Like, I don't know if they're funded. I don't want to give away the alpha.
Oh yeah, totally.
When is the ceremony? When's the victory ceremony?
Man. We don't know anything.
We'll get back to you on that.
Yeah.
All right, so then I'm not gonna leak it right now.
It's mid next week is the ending.
Are you guys seeing something that, because we're so like, I don't know what's going on ETH, and you guys have a broader view. Like, I don't pay attention to Ethereum because there's just enough time.
Just the price is going down. That's what's happening to it.
Are you guys seeing something interesting that's unique from your perspective? Like a trend, right? Like, is there like a something that hasn't been tried on other blockchains before? So
the thing that I've seen that is unique is I've seen a couple of people building stuff, like a couple of the founders where I look at their background and they're not crypto native. So that's the main thing I've seen. I haven't seen anything where I'm like, I don't think this could possibly be built on ETH yet. I've seen a couple of games where I'm like, okay, you wouldn't, like, it would be more efficient to build this elsewhere, because like if this took off, gas fees would be nuts. So you'd have to build it on Matic or on a roll-up or something. But the main thing that's unique is I'm seeing a bunch of people who are building a crypto thing for the first time in this hackathon, where they haven't done that in the past. Like, their history is all like, worked at tech company, startup, or whatever, to the point where someone I followed since my first ever startup, which was a tech education startup. It was like a thing for developers to learn more. Wait, I think I have the t-shirt on for this startup right now. I do. Holy shit. It was called Enki. It still exists today. When I was building that, like 10 years ago or something, there was this developer I followed who's really, really good at JavaScript. And I saw him tweet the other day. He was like entering something in the Solana hackathon. And he was like anti-Bitcoin, because I obviously moved on to Bitcoin stuff after those times, and chatted to him about it a bit, and he was like, I think it's a scam, seems like a Ponzi scheme to me. And now he's building shit on Solana. So that's novel and interesting that I think. I can't lie and say I've looked through all the Solana entries in great detail. I haven't, but I've seen a lot of like CryptoKitties type clones, or like projects that I've seen on ETH where they've put the effort in to rebuild them and stuff. But I promise I will actually have a look at it. I will do that.
There's a couple of concepts that I think are interesting with blockchain stuff. Eventually, I think there are certain things that are deterministic but controlled by governments that are just a really long roadmap. Like you need regulation to fix for medical records or public titles. Those are the classic examples I like to give for like what's on a blockchain. Things that don't require that type of regulatory approval that I think are interesting are like the hardness of content. So, I come from the open source web space, and I think the idea of having the democratization of publishing, like you can publish anonymously from a country where you would be punished by that country or your content could be shut off. I think that's the type of thing that's really interesting from a content perspective. And then the other thing that I find interesting is I don't think there's really a big point in unbanking people or going to the unbanked if their only way of doing finance is on their mobile phone. And most blockchain applications freaking suck on a phone. So I think the big gateway we'll see is where you have like these open apps that are in an app store and people can download an app. They're interacting with crypto through a mobile only low bandwidth interface. And then they actually get access to things like with no fees, having the equivalent of a checking account, but it's like rethinking Venmo where they maintain custody on their phone and they can send quickly and they can earn yield, but it's all mobile first. And I think that that's not really solved. And that could work really well on either a fast blockchain or a layer 2. And I would love to see some stuff be built around that.
I got a question. Someone tweeted me, said, can you ask the big brains if an algorithmic stablecoin will ever work?
No. Okay.
Totally.
The caveat here is I think I suspect that the cool thing about Bitcoin wasn't the proof of work store of value. It was getting consumer grade cryptography that's high quality into normal people's hands. Like all those ledgers, all those wallets, like Electrum, none of that shit existed before Bitcoin. Like it took me like a year of meetings to get anything signed at a Qualcomm. And that's a big company, right? Like it was all VeriSigned, dudes with guns standing outside of where your certificates are kept. And now like humans can sign stuff, right? And it's easy and it's affordable. And if you like think that if that's the most powerful piece of this and you have 1 billion people, somebody will figure out some censorship resistant channel like us to coordinate them, right? It's not about the tech. It's about that 1 billion people that can coordinate. And I think maybe it won't be like an algorithmic stable coin, but I think that coordination, that like network of people, getting all of them around one token, could have a lot of value. And that to me is pretty wild to think about. Like if that thing is value, then you can use that to over collateralize a stable coin, right? Like we could figure it out from there. But like if you can get like 1 billion people that have cryptography to all like coordinate over something, I think that's something really weird and interesting that maybe is more powerful than store of value proof of work meme.
That makes sense to me. Another question was what do you tell people you do? Like, do you admit that you work in blockchain? Because like, what if you worked at Dropbox in the past and had reputable jobs, like very serious people? Yeah. Maybe people respect you, and then you're like, you know what? I actually work in blockchain, and then it all goes out the window.
I just like say a bunch of technical words and their eyes glaze over. Like, whoa. Right? Like, I don't know. I do say, like, I do tell people I work in blockchain and public cryptocurrency, that crypto's going to take over. I'm trying to red pill everybody. Okay.
I think when we, the first time we started getting seed money, the banks wouldn't give us an account if we said anything with the word blockchain or crypto in it. So I just started saying that we were an open source financial services software company, and they immediately gave us bank accounts, like anywhere that we asked.
Now they're just going to shut them down.
No. Now we have good bankers that actually get it.
There you go.
But that account did get shut down. That was a problem.
What do you?
Reggie, what do you tell? I know. After you. I just tell people I've got a trust fund. It's way less embarrassing than saying I'm a blockchain investor. What the fuck? I'm not saying that to no one. Come on.
I try to tell people I just work in web stuff. But if I was on a plane to Miami next to this young kid that really wanted to talk about work stuff, and like he just kept asking more specific questions until I was forced to talk about crypto, and then he was like, "Oh, what do you think about Dogecoin?" And I was just like, I can't do it, man, can't do it. But
you don't tell people that you're a host of very serious online financial services
the
podcast.
only thing worse than saying you work in crypto is to say you're a podcaster.
It's true. It's so true.
It's the most cringe thing ever to say. I hate talking about it.
Oh god. Yeah, that's hilarious. Oh no, I think Twitch streamer would actually be below it. So we've like made the worst combination of all. We're like Twitch streaming a podcast about blockchain. That's fucking. That's all of them. Oh dear, we're not gonna make it.
We are definitely not gonna make it.
All right, so I'm gonna ask a few more questions from chat. Ledger, if you got anything else, and then we should
There is
ask
some
the
meme
final
that
questions.
people want me to play. I don't think I'm gonna be able to play it, but we'll link it. Okay, it's the Solana Summer 2021 video. I'm
watching it now.
I don't know.
You can't play it because you don't know how.
I
make
don't
it
think
work?
I can make. I don't think I can get y'all to hear the sound. But I can.
Oh,
So good. Okay.
I think I can get the.
I think I've seen this.
The chat can tell me if they can hear it. But.
You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up.
Yeah, you can
You got to pump it up,
Full
don't you
screen.
know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know?
full
Pump
screen.
it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know?
Why don't we all switch to Solana?
Did you see SPF at a club? It was awesome.
Solana Summer, let's fucking go, ladies. Don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up. Don't you know?
The official soul dance.
We're gonna have to learn it.
It's pretty easy. Who makes this stuff? Unreal.
It's so good.
Is this your video? End of part 1. Oh, what a tease. All right.
Oh man.
So there you go. That's the video. What did the chat
Myron's
want?
going to be in part 2. Myron's going to be like
No, you've already raised the stakes. He told them they have to have Leonardo DiCaprio or it doesn't count.
No, number 2 was Size Chad. Like Size Chad on a boat in Miami
Chad.
doing a very serious advertisement about how he afforded this boat. That is, it looks comedy genius. So it's like advertising. That's
We gotta
peak
do
advertising.
it. It's
Look, I'll be Size Chad's agent. I want 15%. All right, so chat, have you got any other questions? We got them here for a little while longer. What do you want to know?
Thoughts on Bitcoin? That's one we haven't gotten in a while. What do y'all think about Bitcoin? I know you're focused on Solana day in and day out, but
I mean, like, I guess from a personal perspective, like, you know, I was born in the Soviet Union. My parents got the hell out as soon as they could, but a lot of people couldn't. And that whole thing collapsed. And there was a lot of like violence because of the entire collapse of like, you know, the government around them. I think if Bitcoin existed or exists, because there's some way to like hedge against that level of shit hitting the fan, I think it might actually prevent the worst of it. So you know, I'm like this idea of self-sovereign, decentralized money that's a store of value. I don't know if it'll work, right? Like despite it being worth $1 trillion, I'm still skeptical. But like, I think it could be like a huge force of good, you know.
Cool. Kobe, what else do you see?
Tolly and I were just talking earlier today about how crazy it is that Bitcoin exists, and like there's no way we'd be working on this if that didn't happen. And everything up until Bitcoin just felt like the entire tech space was becoming a factory for things that Amazon and Google could acquire and get people a bunch of like reasonably sized houses. And like Bitcoin changed everything. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Ledger, I've just realized that like the way where you're positioned on the stream means I can stroke your head like I'm petting you. I'm glad we figured that out at the end and not the beginning, because so what do you two think about other layer ones that have cropped up this cycle? Your maybe BSC is like kind of pointless because it's just ETH with some things taken off it, but you know, your Avalanches, your Cardanos, your like Nia, like I can't even remember them all now.
I still know what Chia is. I saw that one recently. That's proof of storage or something. But
Chia.
Yeah, like a chia pet. Sorry, go ahead.
They got, you know, we're all fighting, right? Like we're all competing, and that's good. Competition is awesome.
So you hate all
like as much as like the Lakers hate the Warriors, you know, or whatever. They like hate them. They want to destroy them, but they'll go like, you know, hang out with them after the game, right? Who cares, right? I think competition is awesome. Like it's just like a way for us to, you know, kind of drive each other a little harder. A lot of the innovations that we see in the space is like somebody trying something and then somebody else getting inspired by that and like giving it their like turn on it and that thing succeeding. And that rapid development, I think, is what's growing the pie for everyone. You know, there's just moments when, you know, like, I think we're getting some pretty good, like, tailwind, like we're moving pretty fast and that's pretty exciting, but it's not like, it's just it's early, right? How many people have self-custody right now? 30 million people, maybe? Would you guys say like that's like an upper estimate?
I don't know.
Definitely not 100. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw something today. It was like the amount of people in the UK that owns cryptocurrency is like 3 or 4% or something.
But how many of them like have taken custody of it, taken it off of the
probably.
exchange?
I don't think most anyone.
5% of them.
Yeah, nobody takes it off the exchange. Everybody's crypto is on Binance and Coinbase and FTX and stuff.
Yeah.
So if you have 30 seconds to FUD one other project, throw it out. Throw your best FUD. Like,
wow, Ledger's gone deep. Ledger's gone deep.
So like pick something safe, like SafeCoin.
I don't know.
Don't pick SafeMoon. They've got a
feel
massive
bad.
community.
I kind of dunked on Definity, right? Earlier. Even though, like, I don't know, they're trying to do their thing, right? They're working, like, you know, they have their own marketing department. Who should we dunk on? I feel bad about saying bad about anyone else.
Just pick an easy target like Titan. Like I went to 0 in a single candle. Just pick that if you don't want to answer. Or like Cardano maybe.
If all else fails, just say Cardano.
I like used to code in Haskell. I know where they're coming from. I don't know, Raj.
If you were still having your war with Thorchain, we could have been like, "What's your best Thorchain fund?" But now you kissed and made up.
That's right.
All right, no, I've got the perfect one. Zcash.
Oh, dude, I loved your quote that there was a ghost in the ceremony.
There was a fucking ghost in Google Meet or something, like fucking getting an inflation bug in there and then ran off.
Who do you like want to shit on, Raj?
We get it. I don't know. Everyone wants war. I've been trying to preach peace, you know, like
Okay,
It's
ETH.
good for everyone.
But, yeah.
He's coming in with
What are you doing? Like the one thing we can't do, man.
Out of love. Yeah, it's like what
No,
chat said
okay.
picking on Cardano is like beating up a kid 3 years younger than you at school.
Yeah, I know. They're the big boy. They
hard-
should handle it. Fuck them, right? Come on. Like, get your shit together and ship something.
No, we use. I mean, I think the mentality was like anybody who's at least trying to build something useful doesn't deserve to be shat on. And so then it kind of narrowed us down to like, okay, dog coins are kind of something to shit on. And then we met that guy. What's his name, Luke? and he's like making dog, and he's like this awesome guy. You know, he's just such a cool guy. And then you start to get a sense it's like experimentations with memes. Everything's useful. So we love everyone in the space.
How does it feel that Shiba was listed on Coinbase one day before Solana?
It's if this stuff, if it succeeds, right, is like this idea that we get a bunch of people around a meme and that's itself a powerful force. Like, what if that works? Like,
I
then
hate that world.
If that's the thing that gets 1 billion people to hold, their own keys, then like, great, that's fine.
Yeah, I don't think anyone owning the Dogecoin owns their own keys. I don't think.
well, how do they get them?
They're all
like-
on Robinhood.
Wait, Robinhood lists dog coins?
Yeah, Doge.
Yeah, it's like the biggest Doge market. or
No,
something.
Doge is like old school. They get a pass.
No,
They're like,
but the reason Doge is always a candidate for like these dumb, meme cycle pumps is because of the Robinhood people are just like cycling their AMC and GameStop profits to go buy Doge when it's 4 cents and pump it to 40 and prove BitLord right.
This is why the size chad and the continuation of Marin series is going to work, because the attention is the only scarce resource in crypto. Like, money you can get from anywhere, don't matter. Like, put a contract out there, someone will send money to it in hopes that they get rich. VCs will fund anything. You can just lie to their faces and be like, we're going to do this. Like, who's the team? This guy, he's currently in jail. They'll be like, we love it, we're funding that, we haven't tried that yet. So money just comes from anywhere, it's easy. But attention is like super, super scarce, and making people focus on the right and most important things. And that's why dog coins are winning, because they just made a meme that got super popular, draws loads of attention to it. If Doge goes becomes a smart contract platform, they'll onboard so many people to DeFi. Like, they'll immediately compete with Binance Smart Chain and ETH in user bases if they build some good Ponzi's on top.
That's gotta be what they're planning.
it's a dog on dog DeFi ecosystem.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, we've got to accept.
I tweeted at Size Chad, and the monkey guy that made that meme video is offering to just make it. We don't even need Size Chad. they'll just make it from Photoshop. All right, do it, monkey guy.
They'll just deep fake Size Chad wherever he needs to be.
No, people would know if it wasn't the real Size Chad. People believed he was fake. Now they'll know that it's not. Now they'll know it's not the real fake.
There's like an immune response in crypto when somebody that has filtered out a lot of these like shitty projects that have raised a lot of money, and that's kind of cool. Even if they're still around, people are just kind of have like built walls to where no matter what they do, they're just kind of effed, right? So
I think EOS is kind of in that basket. Like, it's still worth like $18 billion or something, but I don't know what they build. I don't know what they do. It makes no sense to me, but that market cap just seems to sustain itself forever and ever. And Brock Pierce is like, oh, you can do El Salvador, I can do El Salvador too. And he's like taking pictures in El Salvador all of a sudden, talking about crypto adoption with the El Salvadorian
What was that
president.
voice? Was that like your serious voice? I was like, what does it mean when you go like slightly lower pitched? You just jump down an octave to do Brock Pierce. Is that what he sounds like?
Yeah, I think I probably should have jumped up an octave or two to do Brock Pierce. But it's just...
Look, you're talking about ex-presidential candidate Brock Pierce, and it seems to be in a negative light, and I don't like it.
I just don't understand, like, who holds that stuff and like why. Like, it's got to be some kind of zombie coin, but you know, it had its day of hype, and now I just feel like it's like 100-year road to zero. It just blows my mind.
So this is again, this blows my mind too. Like, where do those numbers come from?
Size chat's in the chat. I got hired and fired real quick.
The real size chat is in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, EOS are incredible at raising money. Like, they just raised, how much was it? Like, they just raised a ridiculous round for, what was it, something like Bull Exchange or something. It was like, they're just building an exchange,
Yeah, sure,
and they
why
put
not?
Bull in the name. And they moved all the assets from the EOS like company to this new entity, like just entity hopping with their funds, I guess. But they're phenomenal at raising money. Like maybe the best in the world. Like maybe like they compete with Theranos at like just raising.
I can shit on them. That sucks. Just fuck that.
Yeah, they have enough money.
Yeah.
They have infinite money.
To keep raising.
Like,
Why do they keep raising?
You gotta ship something.
Yeah.
You actually have to like, yeah. I don't know.
Remind
It is interesting how those things seem to survive, because like IOTA was one of them that
was about to say
IOTA was
IOTA.
around like 2017. It like died, like the blockchain didn't work or something. It like just went offline for a bit, and then like this cycle, people are like, "Have you heard about IOTA?" And I'm like, "Oh God."
how is
Trinary
it back? How is this
computer,
happening?
man.
So, how do you convince people that Solana's not the 2021 EOS? You know,
It's
Like-
got 3 letters and there's an S and an O in it. It's only 1 letter different.
Are we not past that point? I feel like we're past that point.
I think you are, but like it's very difficult when you see like 50 of these layer 1, you know, ETH killers come out. Like how setting yourself apart is a real challenge, and I think y'all succeeded at doing that. But you might not necessarily have convinced the world that you're not going to EOS yourself as the cycle hype, trails off.
What we learned that works is like finding that like those Reneals, those like artists like RAC that are like that have like a vision, and we're like, hey, we're doing this high performance censorship resistant thing. We'll do whatever you need to make your vision work, and they dig it, and that's like we're gonna keep doing that, right? We're gonna keep finding people that want to build cool blockchain shit. And those are the folks that
I think
really
honestly,
good at convincement.
it's like there's a flywheel that's spinning red hot right now. It doesn't have to be us anymore. Reniel is, and not just him, all the builders that have already like shipped and kind of get like the delicate balance of all the features and design decisions behind Solana, and they're really excited about it. They're just spreading. They can't stop talking about it, and it's growing without anyone's need to like invest in it or keep it going.
Yeah,
That's what I think like EOS never achieved, right? There was never an actual organic, but you can have organic communities that self-perpetuate, the success, whatever your success metric is of a project, right? Like that's what some of these zombie chains is like, there are still people on YouTube that just like really feel like they have to go and talk about it all day. I think the difference with Solana is the people that are doing that are people that have actually shipped like really hard to build software and that are really appreciative of what Solana is enabling for them. So in some ways I think it's like the game is already over, the flywheel is spinning, and it's got a really good fundamental set of people at the center of it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, and it's probably the case. Like if you can create that organic community where people are legitimately building things and then they find adoption. I think it's not good, for instance, if you build all these apps, but then you like totally fail at receiving adoption to the apps themselves. Kobe, wasn't that what? Who was talking about that the other day, about the like the opposite of the fat protocol thesis, but it was like the kind of app first mentality of bringing value to the network.
It was Kyle, mate. That was like 2 episodes ago. How did you not remember that?
Yeah, it was Kyle from Three Arrows.
Do you not even listen during the episodes?
I do, I was just
You
trying
just sat there waiting for it to
So many
end. Like,
good
please get
guests.
me off this fucking stream.
We've had so many good guests recently. I had to remember who gave that pearl of wisdom. But yeah, Kyle was talking about that, where it's like early on, maybe Solana drives the value of the network, of like the promise of the tech and what can be built. But eventually, the stuff being built has to replace Solana as the most important thing, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I think we're there. I think we're there, honestly. Like most of the really high quality devs that come in are already sold. They're just trying to talk to us to, I don't know, figure out if we can help accelerate them or something. And then when you ask, like, why are you already sold? It's like they talk to somebody else who already built. And then the same, and I think we're like on the third order of that, those concentric circles now, where like, SBF was obviously one of the key first ones who just was so loud and vocal. And I think they've been banging the table to everyone that they talk to that Solana is the place to build. But it's a choir now. I think there's like at least, a few dozen people out there that are all day just red pilling devs to, building on Solana, because the network effects are real.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, even Maps.me is on Solana, in it. The DeFi wallet in an offline map app, so you can use your DeFi wallet while you're offline in the jungle or something.
It's a match made in heaven.
I can't fund Maps.me.
Bring it on.
Maybe we should talk.
Bring it. We'll take all of it.
I'm not betting against them, to be honest. Like, Sam just wins at everything he does, so might as well be
It's like, Maps.me is my favorite project of the cycle.
There's
my
already
by the way,
a GIF and Telegram of Kobe petting my head, so that's good.
I'm on a DM with Size Chad. He says he's literally in tears, and he said, "Sign me up." So I think video number 2 is on the way. He's in.
Can we get a commission on that?
Yeah, sure.
Ledger, you've got to be video 3, so they got to go Marin, then Size Chad, then Ledger, but yours has got to be even better. Yours has got to be peak dad.
That's a real step down. Kobe, should we do the alpha?
Yeah, but final question. I've seen it spammed a bunch of times. People want to know, do either of you own a Soul Punk?
Soul Punk, shit.
Is that a thing? There's soul punks now?
The answer is no. They didn't know they existed.
Wait,
Soul Punks to zero. Join
It's
the
CryptoPunks.
land of...
It's CryptoPunks with the Solana gradients on the background.
on Solana, or is this like an ETH?
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, they're like pumping or some
Surely
shit.
it's on Solana.
They're pumping. That's cool.
Yeah, they're going...
No, we really like crypto kickers though. Crypto kickers are fucking dope. I don't know if you've seen those. That's like, I think that's the real soul punk.
I got a pixel dude.
The dude
did
is.
they go to 0? Or is that something different?
No,
Didn't Pixel Dude just go... Oh no, I just saw that the other day. All right, yeah. There was another Pixel something that went to 0. Or it was like Pixel People or something.
Wait, how do NFTs go to 0? They're just like a thing.
It's because
Well, that's where they belong. What do you mean? How do they go to 0? They go back to 0.
as an owner of many NFTs worth
There's only one of
$0.
them. It's a one. It's never good.
That's why they call them collectibles, because like you just collect them. They just sit on your address, but no one will ever take
Can't
it
sell
from
them. You can't sell them because there's no bidders.
No way. You can you can fractionalize them and stick them in the lending protocol. It's all tokens, and then you've created a whole art market DeFi ecosystem.
Well, if you could convince somebody to buy my Bastard Punks and Me Bits, I'd be very appreciative of that.
Your Me Bit is also my favorite story. It's like,
Yeah. I think we lost
There's no-
to Kobe. That's okay. Kobe, you're gone.
I can still hear you.
Okay, now you're back. You're back. You just
That was weird. I could hear you the whole time.
Yeah, you just pooped out on the video for a second though.
That was weird.
It's your punishment for criticizing my Me Bits.
You just turned me off. You just like cancel Kobe. He's gone. All right, let's do it. Let's wrap it up. Every episode, we finish the episode in the same way. We ask our guests for a teaching, a piece of wisdom, some alpha, something that you like, maybe a mantra or a learning that you often reflect on and apply to your life, and you find yourself coming back to it as like, oh shit, I'm really glad I learned this. This is very useful. Maybe you read it in a book. Maybe it was in a rap song. Who fucking knows where it came from? just some piece of information, some teaching you can pass on to our viewers to make them happier, healthier, richer, more successful, more fulfilled, maybe just boost their self-confidence. I don't fucking know. It's your mantra.
You want to go first, Raj?
Yeah, I think my mantra is new normal. Like, you wake up and, you know, Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador, and there's like 10, you know, just new normal. Like, treat it like it's a new day, and it's always been like this. And like, what's the biggest you can go, and what's the most you can make of that situation, rather than kind of like staying on tilt.
Shit, what is it for me?
What do you got, Tully?
Do I have a mantra, or am I like all over the place?
I think some advice.
Just life advice, self-help.
Life advice. Don't drink too much or eat too much. Get some sleep. Work out.
Wow, you just wrecked Kobe 4 times in a row.
Moderate consumption of caffeine. You know, like, that stuff's important. It'll catch up with you when you're 40. So like, I was lucky enough to live in San Diego, where all I did was work out. So when I started this thing, I could like basically use that as collateral for 3 years in the startup.
All right, so you got to move to San Diego. I read between the lines there. Move to San Diego.
Move to San Diego.
It is like the best weather city in the world. It's awesome there.
Best weather city in the world's a bold claim. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pleasure. Ledger, any parting thoughts?
Just happy y'all are here. It was great to have you on. Solana fam. Go to Solana.com. Check out the hackathon. There's links and all that stuff. We'll put their social stuff in the website. Go to uponly.tv. And of course, go to uponly.tv/Blockfolio as well. Thank you to Blockfolio for being our partner. You can trade directly from one asset to the other right on Blockfolio at uponly.tv/Blockfolio. You can even buy Solana on Blockfolio right there. That's all you got to do. Thanks so much. We'll catch everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Cool.
Thanks, guys.